Hey guys, I wanted to record this video sort of outlining the strengths and weaknesses of Tank Uther, and how to build him and his general playstyle. It's kind of a unique niche within uh, Heroes of the Storm comps. Kind of the strengths of playing Tank Uther is that um, you have a pretty reliable point and click stun on a pretty short cooldown. Um, and he obviously is tanky through his trait. He gets 15 armor. He's got a pretty decent health pool, and on top of that, by having him sort of as a tank slash pseudo support, he can enable characters that need a little bit more help with their health pool, like Maiev or Kerrigan, who are these highly aggressive engagers, but can be pretty squishy. And so you can go with these aggressive comps as long as you draft wave clear and as long as you draft additional engage tools, because even though this is a pretty solid stun, it's not a consistent engage tool from long range, right? So you're going to rely on those Kerrigans, those Maevs for the engage. Maybe also draft like an offlane Imperious or Hogger or Blaze or Urel, and then you're also drafting like a strong hyper carry that can clear waves really quickly, like Vala or Sylvanas, or even Tychus sometimes. So first, I wanted to
Choose a
go
talent.
through his talent build
Choose a talent.
and talk about why you pick certain things versus others. And at first, at level one, um, you might be inclined to go Hammer of the Lightbringer because it gives you more mana and also reduces the cooldown of Hammer of Justice. I've over time I've found that I like this more as a support player if I want more CC. But in the main tank role, it's not as useful as you think because one, it's already on a pretty low cooldown, and like I mentioned, Uther is not the primary engager. He's a follow-up engager. And so you're using that Maiev or Kerrigan or Imperius or whoever to initiate the fights, whereas uh, Uther simply does a short follow-up. Now, Hammer of the Lightbringer can help with that, but I think what's really going to put Uther into the niche that is the main tank slot is actually the Silver Touch ability, or Silver Touch talent. So what this does is you stack up the quest by healing folks with either your abilities, and over time it will reduce the mana cost of your queue, and also when you complete the quest, it will increase the range. So your baseline range, is pretty short.
Right.
Yeah, so that's about the length right there. But when you take the
Choose a
quest and you
talent.
complete it, the range gets a little bit longer. I think you can even go as far as here. Yeah. So that's pretty important. But why that matters is because you're going to combine it with Holy Shock at level 4. And what this will allow you to do is use your Q on opponents, and it will not only make the cooldown shorter so you can keep it going, and it'll lower the mana cost, which you've already also done with your level 1 talent, but by keeping Holy Shock
Choose a talent.
on cooldown, you're essentially maintaining Uther's 15 armor. So I can poke, I can engage with this, and I can have that 15 armor for 2 seconds. So there's 4 seconds of downtime where I don't have that. But then by adding Holy Radiance in between there, you only have 2 seconds of downtime. So usually what you'll do is, either someone you can poke someone to dismount them, you can walk up and stun, and then you can follow up with a W for the damage. And then by the time that's done, your Q is pretty much back and ready to go. You're maintaining your armor, you're poking, you're doing damage, and really the damage is less of a thing, and the self healing is less of a thing,
I like it.
more so than the need to maintain the armor, which is pretty critical for him being in that tank role. But that's not to say that you can't use it on your allies, but it's going to be on the full cooldown. But remember, in this case, Uther is the tank and not the support, so you're more likely going to be using it on enemies, um, healing yourself, keeping yourself topped off so that your healer can focus on healing the rest of the team. And then not only are you damaging
Strike
folks
with
with your
grace.
wave of radiance and giving yourself the armor buff, but you're also providing armor. You try to land it on your primary engager, your Maev or Kerrigan. And in particular with Kerrigan, armor on top of shields through her trait is going to have added value, right? You're reducing damage and it's having to go through shields, and so it makes her even beefier. And of course, Maev very greatly benefits from armor. She has lots of armor talents, so having even more uptime of that through Uther makes it really, really strong. Okay, so there's a level 1 and level 4 talents, and again, your main goal is to maintain armor. At level 7, you have a couple of options depending on what you have in the rest of your comp. So first of all, if you're drafting Uther main tank, you are probably drafting like an AoE healer like Brightwing or Lucio, and in both of those cases you do have cleanse. So it may not be as necessary to take cleanse on main tank Uther. However, that is available to you if you just need the extra cleanse. So or you need it earlier. If you can't wait till level 10 for Lucio's cleanse, or you need the true cleanse that Brightwing doesn't have, even though hers is AoE, it's not a true unstoppable. So that can be a nice patch in for that, but usually you can kind of get away with the other two options. The better ability for the main tank role is that Armor of Faith, where if you get stunned, essentially, your cooldown on your Q will get reset, and we'll get to that in a second. But Guardian of Ancient Kings is obviously good against healing the rest of your team and keeping them up with that extra armor, that 50 armor. So if an ETC stun comes in, or a Butcher Silence or whatever, you put Guardian of Ancient Kings, you heal your allies, and they get 50 armor for 3 seconds. That's pretty strong. So, however, for the main tank role, Armor of Faith is pretty great. So I'll show it in action here. So if I go ahead and take that, I'll initiate the boss, and I'm going to use my heal right before the stun from the boss, and you'll see how quickly the cooldown recharges. Yeah, so it's pretty much already ready, and then I can continue to attack the boss with my Q and maintain that armor from there on. So if by chance you get stunned after you've used your Q, they got lots of CC on the front line, you can get your Holy Light back faster, which is again super important for maintaining through Holy Shock and getting your armor back up, and making sure that Uther can stay beefy in that frontline tank role. All right, on to the heroics. Really, both heroics are fine for Uther tank. Again, because you've drafted heavy engage and CC through Maev and Kerrigan, you may not necessarily need Divine Storm, but it can be a nice follow-up to what they have. It really comes down to how strong is the enemy team. Do they have Tychus, for example, and you need to he's going to shred through your armor, and you need that divine shield for survivability. Or they just have lots of deletion on their side, then divine shield is going to be pretty helpful, not just for keeping your allies safe, but keeping Uther alive in the main tank slot, which is super important. And then finally, Divine Storm is just obviously a great follow-up to anything that can be provided by Kerrigan or Maev. As far as the rest of the talent build, 13 and 16, it really is just a matter of fitting into what your comp needs and what the enemy comp has. So, Spell Shield kind of speaks for itself. And don't forget that you can turn it on and off. I like to turn it off and then activate it like an activatable Spell Shield. Well Met can be really, really great into like melee assassins. So if they've got a Butcher, a Thrall, even a Kerrigan or an Illidan, drop that Well Met. They're slowed down, they can't get away, and then they're not really dealing that much damage. It's also great into like Mephisto. If you can stun the Mephisto, they're dealing less damage in their AoE. That's pretty important. And then the Blessed Champion is just good healing. It's good. It also heals himself, so that's kind of interesting. So let me take that. So Blessed Champion. If I deal damage with my Q, I can also heal myself. So that's pretty high throughput of healing, where it's just constantly going. So if you don't feel like you need that damage reduction or you need that spell armor, that Blessed Champion can really fill in the gaps of healing, keep Uther up and available in the main tank role. So lots of good choices at level 13. Kind of just pick it based on your comp and the enemy comp. Okay, level 16. Beacon of Light is good. I think Benediction just has so much value because it's customizable. You can get double stun, you can get double AoE healing and damage. You can patch in the gaps of Holy Light that may not be available otherwise. However, Beacon of Light can give you lots of extra healing on that. It's really more of a healer talent. So that's why I tend to lean towards Benediction.
Choose a talent.
Bulwark of Light is actually really good now. It's basically a sanctification, so you get an AoE Divine Shield, which is pretty crazy, and it lasts for 4 seconds. And so increased movement speed, invulnerability in an AoE for 4 seconds. It's pretty nuts. And it's got an interesting range on it, I believe. So if nope, let's see how close we have to be. There we go. So you have to pretty much be stacked on top of each other, basically like Sanctification, but it's really, really, really strong. Redemption obviously is just as good as it's always been, and is usually my go-to unless I really need that AoE Divine Shield. I don't usually take Divine Protection as the main tank because this doesn't apply to, at least the increased armor doesn't apply to Uther. It only applies to allies, so that's more of the healer talent. But dying as a tank and being able to come back, just like Diablo, like that's super important. And so you can pop all of your abilities and use everything that you have. Use all of your mana, die almost intentionally sometimes. You can play into that and then come back with all of your resources available again. So, as far as the Divine Hurricane upgrade, that's also really, really good. The radius increase is one thing, but having that cooldown reduction of 40 seconds is actually pretty insane. You can essentially get it off twice in a team fight, depending on when it happens. So, or at least during an objective phase, sometimes fights can last a minute. So you may be able to get it in twice. Anyway, so yeah, usually you can take that ult upgrade, but I think Redemption really is where it's at. But you can customize it depending on what you need.
A sound decision.
Yeah, so remember, Tank Uther is more about following up on your team's engage with that stun. So Kerrigan or Maiev comes in, you follow up, and then you keep them up with your W, and then you're poking, you're dealing damage with your Q, and keeping your armor up, and being that pseudo-support, beefy frontliner. So pretty fun character to play as a main tank. It'd be fun to try it out sometimes with our group. If you have any questions, just let me know, and hope you enjoyed this and that this was helpful. Catch you guys later.